kNOwBOX Dance presents dance behind the screen, process production, and social media. Don't forget, say no to the box. Dile no a la caja. 고정관념이란 상자에서 벗어나세요.
Welcome back to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. This is your co-host, Azaria, and I am the manager of resources and archives for kNOwBOX Dance.
This is your co-host, Reina, and I'm the manager of community engagement for kNOwBOX Dance.
This is your co-host, Yejin, and I am the programming director for kNOwBOX Dance.
Hello. This is your co-host, Marthea, and I'm the managing director for kNOwBOX Dance.
Alrighty, welcome back to our podcast. Today is episode 109 already. We want to talk about Dance Film Festival programming. Especially this episode, we want to talk about diverse programming of dance film festivals and the future of NBFF. And I'm sure we have a lot of emerging dance film festivals, especially after pandemic. So it would be great that we can share like kind of part of our NBFF prep meeting, so we can talk about how we curate and program NBFF to the audience, so we can help each other. So start us
real behind the scenes,
for real. So to start us off, I would like to share one of director Jerome Bell's work entitled Véronique Dueno.
Bonsoir. Je m'appelle Véronique Dueno. Je suis mariée et j'ai 2 enfants de 6 et 12 ans.
Okay, I can pause here due to time limitation and copyright. But after this introduction, she sing and she also dance at the same time. She also, during the performance, she drinks and breathe hard if she's very tired. She even changed it. And she, in the beginning, as you heard, she shared her personal stories, like injuries or families and incomes. And I think she was very transparent. And then Jerome Bell, the director of this work, is one of Nong Dance choreographer, and Jerome Bell wants to call himself not a choreographer, but idea man. And I learned this Nong Dance, and this is kind of choreographic movement, like 1990s, starting from France. And I think it is very similar to what kNOwBOX tried to do. Like this Nong Dance artists tried to go outside of the limit perception of dance. And sometimes they call it like conceptual art, as you know. So the dance is performative, not just performance itself. The presence is very important. And what we try to do is also get outside of box. So with dance and film genres, especially through kNOwBOX Dance Film Festival, we're trying to find a way how can we, not being vulnerable itself, but share dance and film different ways, not just to certain audience. And non-dance artists normally ask those questions I brought here. Maybe we can change this choreography work or choreography or body, change to dance film festival or dance while you're listening it. I can read those 4 questions I brought today. First one is, what are the factors that make the choreography work, which we can say dance film, even if it is not part of what is commonly referred to as choreography. What is the function of body in dance performance? Maybe we can say, what is the function of dance and film in dance film festival? And what happens we don't have dance in dance performance, but still have body? And what are the factors which affect audience appreciation? So these are aligned with our festival, I think. So through Dance Film Festival, we want to re-examine how we see dance and pursue dance and film and overcome limitation in dance appreciation too. And we're also choreographers, artists too here, MBT member, but we're also producer, programmer, curator, production manager through NBFF. A lot of hats. So to start this up, up, I want to ask the first beginning questions. Why do you think we MB pursue dance film festival rather than dance film screening? And how do you differentiate those two if you can?
So I can start off by defining how we define festival. A festival originally means a kind of ceremony to commemorate an event or time that has special meaning to an individual or group. Therefore, festivals become a means of communication that strengthens the solidarity of members of society. Festivals can be divided into 1, spectator type festivals, and 2, experimental type festivals.
I'm really excited because I interviewed Kara Hagan, who authored a book entitled Screen Dance from Film to Festival, Celebration and Curatorial Practice. And what's interesting in her book, she introduces 5 basic screen dance festival structures. And as I was reading it, I was trying to think, of course, how kNOwBOX Dance Film Festival kind of falls into these 5. So for the purpose of this episode, I will outline the 5 structures that she outlined in her book: cinema, make-fests, multi-purpose, itinerant, and online. And I'd love to hear what you all think, but of course, maybe after reading the book and everything, but I think that the kNOwBOX Dance Film Festival kind of falls somewhere between a few of these. Obviously, we are a cinema fest. That's how she defined it, is that's like the most traditional form of film festivals, where there's screenings of films. But I also think we have this multi-purpose part to it, where we have different workshops for kids, for adults, things like that. Even having the online component. This past festival in 2021, we started the festival online with a wonderful pre-fest talk by Karen Perlman and Richard James Allen from the Physical TV. So I think the kNOwBOX Film Festival kind of, we thought outside of the box yet again to kind of even think about how we're structuring the film festival. And it sounds like that's what many festivals are doing, especially amidst the pandemic, shifting to including at least that online component as well. I personally feel just like so passionate and inspired and motivated because of how our festivals have been for the past 3 years. I think we're thinking outside of the box in kind of balancing our 2 communities. If you want to think of it like that, we have our local community where we're established here in Dallas, Texas, as a nonprofit. So with that aspect, part of the festival is having these networking events for working artists and patrons of the arts here in Dallas. So we're kind of negotiating that with the networking events, with receptions, with having amazing live music and things like that. And then we're also kind of trying to connect that audience that we're building here in Dallas with our international audience of artists. And how do we connect those 2 people?
My second question then is, do you encounter any difficulties when we program or curate the MBFF?
Well, to start off, I think the first difficulty is what we just talked about, this kind of balancing act between our values and priorities as a festival and our mission. So how do we always come back to our mission as a film festival and balance those values, especially as we're operating in many different spaces, trying out all sorts of venues, offering different multi-language signage, subtitles, things like that. So I think it's just kind of this balancing act of, we want to try all of these things to serve our community, but is that serving our mission too? So how are we kind of balancing those 2 together?
I think difficulty has been probably deciding on the final films. And we've mentioned this in a previous episode. I think Azaria brought it up. The amount of films that we've gotten and the amount of films that we want to choose for the festival, and being realistic with those expectations, and just offering a program that can connect to all. I think it's a very difficult task, especially when it's multiple of us working on it. Not that multiple of us working on it is a bad thing. I think it's a great thing because I feel that we offer different perspectives, and perspectives are good. But it's just the hardest part. And I think it's because we want to give everybody the opportunity to be part of the program. So that is one of the difficult part for me. What about you, Azaria?
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up a good point. My difficulty is a little bit different, but just kind of going off what you said, like acknowledging that we're gatekeepers, even though we probably don't like that term, and we probably are finding ways to not hold the keys in a way that is inequitable. I think that we're having to be very conscious about that even when it comes down to choosing, right? Like I might have a film that I really like and I think should get in the film, but it's a group and we have to look back at our mission so that we can go about curation in, I think, a better way than has been done in the past.
And it's also like we're thinking about who are these gatekeepers, right? Because I think what's unique to our festival, typically festivals have one director or two directors, but we all four are directing and curating this festival. We're wearing all of the hats throughout the festival. And we also invite an international jury panel. So we're actively thinking about who are these people that are reviewing these films. So that way we're thinking about it from that lens. But I also think it would be helpful maybe if we talk about our actual curation process. Like it would be fun to kind of hear from each of you, like, okay, we have this rubric that we created together based on feedback from past jury and things like that. But what does it look like? So you sit down, you're going to watch the films, and then what happens next? Like Azaria, what happens when you curate? What are you thinking about?
Well, each film that I go into with open mind. So I don't try to bring any expectation to the film. I think that will not do the film justice in the moment. I take the time to watch it before I try to judge it. Because sometimes if you think you know where something is going and you've already made up your mind, it could take a twist. Right. And maybe you've missed the opportunity to enjoy that twist because you've already assumed something about the film that wasn't there, or you assumed that it should be like the last one you watch. So I think it's an emptying of the brain.
I think to add to that, I don't know how y'all feel about it, but what about your biases? I know we say we come in with a clear mind, but heck, I'm going to tell you this right now. I try to do what you're saying, Azaria, like clear my mind, come out, just be clear. And then as soon as I start watching the first film, I can sense my biases coming in and taking over. And so I'm curious about what you guys do when that happens. It's like, I know as soon as like I look at the film and I'm like rating, I have to check back in with myself and say, am I doing this because it's speaking true to the guidelines? Or am I doing this because it's speaking true to Raina's guidelines? Do you know what I'm saying? That just is hard. It's hard. And then
I trust my feeling, because I'm one of the audience, and my artistic taste, right? I don't know if that's the right word. Artistic, what do you call it? Like
preference?
Yeah, preference. Yeah, it's important too. But I'm also like one of the curator, right? Jury. So I really like write it down what I really like it, not just I love it. I define what I love it. So I think it's important that I understand what I like it, not just like feeling it, even though feeling is important.
I also do think that the personal biases are important too. And I think that's why it's important to have a diverse panel. Like, luckily, we are already diverse in our makeup, even though we're all women, which I think is still important to highlight. I think when you have a group of all of the same identity, all of the same intersections of life, then then you end up seeing the same type of film shows over and over again. And I do think that having some bias is important because we're going to bring in different perspectives or even maybe have a knowledge set about a particular piece. Like Yejin knows Korean dance and understands the intricacies about that. I know Afro-diasporic dance. So maybe I'm like, okay, this is really important to this community for these, and these reasons that might pass by other people. Now, it doesn't mean that it gets in just because one person likes it or not, but I definitely think it brings something into the conversation where we are able to curate such a vast difference of films and with the guidelines be able to stick to like what is like quality, what is what are the elements that sets it apart. And it's not about being high budget or anything like that. When I say quality, I don't want that to be misconstrued. But I do think there's many times where I've rated a film highly that wasn't my favorite, but I knew that it met the guidelines in a way that was important. And then there's been ones that I thought was really moving that may have been lower budget that I still gave a higher rating because I thought it needed to be part of the conversation when we go to deliberate.
Can we talk a little bit about that, like the conversations that we do have where maybe we don't completely agree on a film, but we go back to this idea that Yejin brings up is like following your intuition, feeling very strongly. I know there's been multiple times where we've felt very strongly about films, but we've had to sit down and had the conversation of like, does this film really belong in our program? Or does this film not? And how are we meeting in the middle? How are we seeing each other's perspectives? Because I feel like that's happened a couple of times.
Definitely. And just to provide some context for our listeners before we dig into that, we do have a rubric on Film Freeway. So kind of to walk you through the process before we get into your question, Raina, so we can all kind of be on the same page. We have a rubric that asks, does the film follow guidelines, choreography, performance, editing, story direction, production value, creativity, and originality? And we have this in Film Freeway. And so each member of the jury panel has access to all of the films, and they go in and they rate each film. Based on that, we look at what are the top scoring films. With that, then we have these conversations. So that's just to kind of catch everybody up to where we'd be at in this process. I think too, in the way you framed the question, Raina, it's not necessarily about the film or about the work. Sometimes it's about the festival as a whole, and we're thinking about how we're actually going to be screening these films as well. What does the venue look like? Because some films might be more feasible for like social media platforms or things like that, whereas some films you can imagine in these huge screens. So I think that that's like part of the conversation as well.
Along with that, when we talk about this kind of conversation at the meeting, we also reference other dance film festivals, right? So we can also talk about one festival that you enjoyed the most when you attended physically, and how we can reference that festival to develop our own festival. And it doesn't have to be dance film festival or dance festival, I think.
I love this question, Yejin, because it reminds me of when we went to the Prague Quadrennial in Prague. And I think we were just so freaking inspired, because this was kind of when we imagine, and all of us kind of talk about how we imagine the future of kNOwBOX Film Festival, we all imagine it as this week-long festival that brings people from all over the world together. And I think when Yejin and I went to the Prague Quadrennial, what was that, back in 2019 or something like that, we got to kind of imagine what that might look like. As we were there, we were just taking so many different notes from how they organized this beautiful, like, actual book that would tell you where the different exhibits of where the different exhibits were. And then it had like huge descriptions on every artist, and just from the coloring to how they had like tape mapped out on the floor and these cool geometric patterns and things like that. I think that was really inspiring for us, just to see the scale in which an arts festival could exist within, and how many people came to that festival. Although obviously it's not a dance film festival, it's about architecture and design. I think it just gave us this taste for what's possible, and kind of helped us in framing questions to bring back to our team for what are our big goals for the film festival, and what are some of these like big imaginations that we have about what that big festival will look like. So each year we add on one new element, or we try on a few other things. So we're kind of following through with that roadmap to get us to that big festival that will happen.
If we have $1,000 billion million, I wonder, how do you want to curate NBFF? So money doesn't like guarantee that we can make big or good festival, right? We need to have good films, our good ability to create our festival, but money is also important. So like, if we don't have that one restriction about like financially, no restriction, what do you want to do?
I would love to be able to tour the films even more. I think location, even though we have a lot of online components, location's still a big factor in hoping that people can make it to that location, physically travel there, make the date, or catch one of the other tour locations.
I love this question. I feel like I love every question, because it's a chance to get to kind of speak into existence all of these goals that we have and that we're working towards. But I think it would be really important for our festival as an international dance film festival to continue building our multilingual captioning and website components and programs. Right now we have 3 languages, but it would be a dream if we could extend that to more languages, so that we could essentially truly make this film festival accessible to people all over the world. Because like we always talk about, dance is a language and movement is a language that most people can understand or relate to. But I think just adding that subtitling, or even just to understand the title of the film that you're watching, I think is so important. So I would love if we could just do every language if we had all of that money. And I think something too that in speaking with that is just, I would love to add ASL interpretation to the films and more closed captioning, because I think oftentimes like how we're thinking about accessibility is still so limited, because I have an abled body. And so, to me, I'm like, oh, accessible, oh, Spanish, like things like that. But I think that there's so many more ways in which we can reach different types of people. And I think in doing that, we would want to expand our programming team, so that way we could have a better understanding of how to actually reach people. We would love to hear from you on if you have a dream for the kNOwBOX Dance Film Festival. We'd love to include your dream and wrap it up with our dream, so we can add it to our goal list and really truly keep building and making this film festival a success for everybody it touches.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks, team. Thanks for sharing your beautiful thoughts. And next episode, I'm going to talk about similar topic with other dance film festival directors. So stay tuned and enjoy your day.
Thank you, Gadden.
The kNOwBOX Dance Film Festival, NBFF, is now accepting submissions for its 4th year as an independent film festival. NBFF seeks dance-related films that challenge the possibilities of what dance can look like in video form. NBFF has 3 categories for submissions. Some are short series, general, and documentaries. For more information and how to apply, visit filmfreeway.com/kNOwBOX Dance Film Festival. kNOwBOX Dance Film Festival. Visit our website, kNOwBOXDance.com, or DM us on social media.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at kNOwBOX Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.